Welcome to the program, everybody. Hi again. My name is Dean. Welcome to Wednesday. I always love Wednesday shows. I don't know why. I'm a big fan of Mondays. Love Wednesdays. Huge fan of Fridays, even though I work 7 days a week. It's like the weekend doesn't even really fucking exist. But yet here we are. I've still got that thing in my head locked that's like, oh, Friday's the day where you get blackout drunk and go have a good time, right? Like it's just in my head. And even though I don't drink and don't get blackout drunk and don't party like a rock star, and I don't go out of my way to get all crazy to let out the dogs on the weekend. I'm not a dog letter outer on the weekend. I just have this steady flow. Even though I have that steady flow and I don't really have weekends, I still somehow get excited for Fridays. I don't know what it is. I know it's not Friday. I know it's Wednesday. I don't mind a good Wednesday because it's like, you're halfway there. And I get to Friday and I'm like, for some reason, it's a psychosomatic thing in me where I'm like, yeah, it's Friday. I mean, I'm still going to work for 12 hours on Saturday and maybe 5 to 10 on Sunday. But Friday, I don't know what it is. It just is in me. I'm a Friday guy and a Wednesday guy.
I feel a little bit of relief on Fridays, but when you drink, like if a Wednesday drinking day is just as good as a Friday drinking day, then you don't look forward to a Friday, because I'll probably get just as drunk tonight as I will on Friday.
It's that steady burn. I remember when I used to drink and I would be like, I'd get a cold on a weekend and I'd be like, I can't drink on a Friday. It felt like I lost. Out. You know what I mean?
You missed a day of
yeah, I missed a day of getting wasted on a Friday because I used to look forward to Friday so much because I never drank during the week. And then when I get to a Friday, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And if I came down with a cold or I had something to do or I needed to drive kids somewhere, I'd be like, God damn it.
Damn kids are ruining my fun.
I don't know what it is. Anyway, welcome to Wednesday. Nice to see everybody. We've got a lot going on today. We're going to talk about Pride Month A-holes. Rod Black is going to join us from Rod Black TV, of course, sportscaster and ambassador for North Star Bet. He's going to join us to talk a bit about this LIV Golf Tour because everybody's losing their minds. The defection from the PGA Tour has begun. Everybody's moving. Rumors of more guys moving over for that big money payday in this new weird shit golf league. Everybody's grandstanding and virtue signaling, so we're trying to make our way around it and get into it with Rod Black a little bit later on. We'll talk about Alejandro Kirk too. But what's that? Sorry, what were you saying?
Mentioned to you on the drive-in our pre-meeting for the pod.
Yeah,
that there's got to be something. Like, I understand they gave DJ $125 million to join the tour. Like, I understand that's a lot of money. That's huge motivation. And sometimes you might sit there and go, 125 mil. Where's Matt? What happened to Matt?
Who's Matt? Matt, he's waiting for us. Matt Lemers. Yeah, he's just saying, dude, we're just preambling, and then we're going to bring our guest in from MJbiz Daily.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So okay. I won't be long. He was there in the green room, and then all of a sudden we start.
He's still there.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell did you do to Matt? Poor Matt.
Nothing. He's waiting. He's waiting patiently. He's sitting there listening.
Anyway,
going,
125 mil. It's like, okay, I get how that could be a motivating factor to go join a Saudi Arabia regime golf league that kills American citizens that report on the news in their embassy.
Yeah.
I guess maybe any man would see past it if they were paid enough money, but there seems to be this mass exodus.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, it's starting. I think because you've seen some big time names make their way over. Watching yesterday's press conference, we got Phil in a press conference coming up in a minute too. Phil Mickelson, who called him dangerous MFers, if you remember that correctly, a couple of months ago, and he's been in hiding since then, and he's just magically joined the tour because he got $200 million. It's like fucking bizarre. So I want to find out who's getting paid, how much, how players are looking at this now. Like, I watched Justin Thomas yesterday go, hey, listen, it's not for me, and I think it's weird, but I can't hate those guys for doing it if they're doing what's best for them. But it is literally probably the biggest sports story in the world right now.
Yeah.
Because it is cratering the PGA Tour in certain aspects. So Rod knows about it. He's at the Royal Bank Open this weekend, the RBC Open, which is happening, the Canadian Open, RBC Open, happening this weekend. He played in the Pro-Am, and I'm sure he talked to a bunch of people. So I'm really excited to get Rod on the show today.
They're not letting. Well, obviously there's a conflict because the debut of the LIV Tour is in London, just outside of London this weekend. So obviously DJ and some of the other players that will be taking part in that won't be playing. Won't be doing the whole.
Well, they can't. They can, and I want to find out about majors and stuff. Like none of those guys, and these are all RBC athletes. And the RBC Canadian Open just lost like several sponsors because of this. Right? It's just a fucking mess. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about Burger King. We'll talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Rays, which will be a little bit of fun. But please welcome to the program a guy I follow. He's a writer for the MJbiz Daily, which is the Bloomberg of weed, and he's the international editor. Please welcome to the program, Matt Lemers, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you, Matt. Thanks for doing this. Love your decorating. Looks great. If Room Raider was part of this, you'd get a 10 out of 10. I'm just letting you know. You there? Gotcha. Yeah, I hear you now.
We got
Good to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But my point was this: Room Raider again, 10 out of 10. Not sure if you did that yourself, but it looks terrific. All the white.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're very
also
welcome.
A snappy dresser.
Very snappy dresser, and you have plants too. Are those real plants, or are you
they're bamboo.
Are they? So they're easy to manage, right? Like you don't see many men. I'm a plant guy too. You don't see many men with sporting plants in their podcast or their Zoom meeting setup. Way to go. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, I'm a big gardener, so I have plants all over the place.
I guess you would be. Is that why you write for MJbiz Daily? Is that how you like? How do you go from being like a journalist to being exclusively a weed journalist for the biggest weed publication in the world? Because it's the defining magazine, defining source for people that use cannabis, the business of cannabis, grow cannabis. So how do you go from being a journalist to writing for exclusively about cannabis for the biggest and the best cannabis publication in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them for sure. So I was living overseas with my family and my two young kids for over a decade. And I was looking for an opportunity to get back to Canada. I'm kind of choosy in terms of like, I didn't want to take a job at a newspaper and get laid off because, you know, the journalism industry has been pretty tough for the last 20 years. So I met my wife in Korea and we had our two kids there and we knew we wanted to raise our kids. We wanted them to go to school in Canada, right? So we moved to northern British Columbia actually for 2 years in Fort St. John, and we liked it there, but it was too cold, obviously. And then we moved to the Cayman Islands where we stayed for 2 years, and we liked it there, but we knew we didn't want to stay there forever. And then this job just opened up. I knew the people who ran MJbiz. I knew the CEO, and it was really important to me that if I took a job at a cannabis publication, that it was run in the same way that a traditional newspaper or news organization would be run in terms of news integrity. So we don't have pay to play. You can't buy articles on our website, for example. And I know that's kind of a big issue in this industry with some publications. I mean, what do you trust if you don't know what was paid for and what was not paid for when you're reading the news? So that was really important to me. The CEO is a journalist by trade and by education. So I knew that wouldn't be an issue here. But I mean, so I was living in the Cayman Islands and this job opportunity came up about 5 years ago. I knew the people and I knew I would be a good fit. And luckily they agreed.
Yeah. No shit. Were you a cannabis connoisseur prior to becoming a cannabis reporter?
I mean, at university I was, but like after I graduated, I lived in Japan, South Korea, and all over the place, Cayman for years. I mean, I consumed no. To be honest with you, I consumed no cannabis at all there because I didn't want to jeopardize my visa status because I had children and stuff like that, right? So it wasn't worth it. Yeah.
Do you consume cannabis now? I guess you'd have to be a cannabis reporter. Well, you don't have to do anything.
I do consume cannabis now, but you don't have to. I didn't for a long time. So.
You sure it wasn't in the job description?
It was. It wasn't. I don't think they encourage it.
Really? You would think that they would. Like, you would think that if you worked at a cannabis publication or you work for a cannabis company, You'd think they'd be like, hey, listen, there's only a couple requirements. You're a great writer, so check that box. You're a good human being. I know you. We've gone through the interview. Check that box. Do you have a gravity bong? That would be a box that I think not someone would check if you're going to get into writing about the cannabis industry.
These people are all business. They don't care if you consume cannabis. They're all business.
They're all business.
At my company, yeah.
Weird. I got into radio, and one of the requirements is you have to be a fucking idiot. So I was like, all right, check that box.
And you have to have a burgeoning drinking issue and an enormous ego to be
I should get
in
into radio then.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I wanted to get you on the show today because we've talked a lot about the cannabis industry, and I follow you. If you don't follow Matt, you should, at Matt_Lemers. Lemers, sorry, my bad. His name is in actually the description, which you can go and check out. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the YouTube description, Twitch TV as well. Dean Blundell Show on YouTube. And again, you can subscribe if you're watching this and not listening to it to Spotify, Google, Apple, etc. But if you've worked in the cannabis industry, if you follow the cannabis industry in this country for the past 4 or 5 years, two things stand out to me. As someone who believes in the plant, someone who absolutely employs cannabis therapy, CBD therapy, someone that used it to get off of alcohol, someone that uses it really very specifically for wellness purposes. I use it at night. I use it for sleep. Never do it during the day because it just isn't my bag. It's just one of those medicinal things I use. You get to know some people in the industry, and we've worked with some people in the industry. Two things that have stood out to me. One is, it seems in this country, since legalization has happened, it's been more about the business than it has about the quality of the product. And it is across the board. That happened. The other thing that confuses me and still confuses me is that it seems like the business of cannabis has taken over from the idea that this is a medicinal property or recreational property or asset, which is why I thought we legalized it to begin with. But can you take me through, I guess the question is, who fucked up the rollout of the cannabis industry in this country and why? Because we seem to be on the precipice of contraction in the industry. Product has, in some cases, never been worse. There's a real funnel when it comes to making sure that product gets into stores and into people's hands. It all goes through OCS. It all goes through the government. Can you explain why the cannabis industry in Canada seems to be so preventative, more business and less about the end user?
So ask me that question in 1 minute in terms of who fucked up the industry. But going back to your earlier point, business over everything else, that cuts to the gist of the problem for the largest producers. And before we get into any details, I just want to differentiate between small cannabis companies and large ones because they're completely different animals. Large companies aren't focused on their customers, and small companies, they bootstrap. They get funding from their relatives and from their family, from former colleagues, just like any typical startup bootstrapping business, any entrepreneur. These people are real, they're legitimate, and they're taking market share from the big companies, and the big companies are terrified of them. The biggest difference between how those two companies are run, those two kinds of companies, the smaller businesses know and they acknowledge that they're agricultural companies first. So if you're a cannabis producer, you're an agricultural business. Now, the largest producers for years didn't acknowledge that, and most of them still don't. And that's why their products are terrible. Imagine if you're a strawberry greenhouse grower, and then you don't acknowledge that you're an agricultural business. You think you're a CPG company. Your strawberries are going to end up tasting like shit, and no one's going to want to buy them. So that's the first mistake they made. The second mistake, the second thing they did wrong, and going back to your earlier point about the medical, is that these companies were successful medical cannabis companies in between 2014 and 2018 when Canada legalized recreational cannabis. They lost that. They gave it up. That was a successful part of their business for some of them. And I don't need to name names because everyone knows who I'm talking about. They were successful medical cannabis companies who took their products seriously. Then Canada legalized recreational cannabis. They said, screw medical, we're going all in on recreational. And then their businesses started tanking from there. So that's just a little bit of background on agricultural and medical, because that's a key part of why those businesses are failing. So who fucked up the cannabis industry? Well,
Please.
I guess the short answer would be people in the boardrooms of those big companies, aided by Wall Street and Bay Street, aided by large accounting firms and stock brokerages, aided by dim investors, because none of this would be happening if investors didn't finance these companies to begin with, and they still do. It was always a game with other people's money. So in terms of who screwed it up, I mean, those guys did. But they'll tell you the government did. But I'm telling you, the government didn't screw it up. For the government, from the government's perspective, this was always about public health, and it was not about creating a profitable, successful industry with thousands of employees and lots of profits. It was always about public health, diverting profits or diverting revenue away from illegal cannabis sellers to legal regulated ones, and getting young people to not consume cannabis. From a public health perspective, legalization has been a major success in Canada.
From a public health perspective, like for people that use it for medicinal reasons, and you're talking about people like me that use it to go to bed, right? People like my mother and my father who just got into the CBN sprays and it's changed their lives. Like, you're talking about that perspective. It's been a rousing success, which was traditionally, or was the goal when the government legalized this. It was never recreational. Is that correct?
Well, so when the government
recreational was just kind of hustled in.
What I mean by public health, I don't mean medical per se. I mean, it's better for the public health of our society if we're not financing people who are doing lots of illegal stuff. So before cannabis was just this, that's why I think everything should be regulated. All drugs should be regulated, because if there's demand for it, someone's going to step up and fill that demand. If it's not the government, or if it's not a private business, legal business, someone's going to do it illegally. It just happens with every single product. So from what I mean by a public health perspective is that less revenue is going to the black market and more revenue is going to regulated businesses.
That makes sense. I think as well, what you're looking at is you're making it easier for people who might actually be looking for an alternative to a opiate or whatever for pain management. You're making it easier for them to. So I didn't think of it that way. I've always sort of, right, because I don't smoke and I don't really pay much attention to it, but I knew that the business was, in the dumps and they weren't making the kind of money they thought. I just sort of assumed that it was government that messed it up because they screw everything else up.
It wasn't the government. In my opinion, it was not the government, because the businesses, when these businesses started when they were getting their business models down in 2017 to 2020, everybody knew the law and they knew the rules, they knew the regulations, and you can't blame the government if you know the rules and then you don't, and then you still lose the game. It's the rules were there for the rules were there for everyone to see. In terms of blaming the government, other mistakes that large producers made was they produced more cannabis than they could sell. So they produced like 20 times more cannabis than they could sell. That's not the government's fault. They bankrolled greenhouses across Canada and around the world in countries that have no chance of legalizing cannabis and being meaningful markets anytime soon. That's not the government's fault. What other mistakes did they make? I mean, they pay their CEOs tens of millions of dollars. The biggest paid CEOs in Canada were from cannabis businesses from 2020 to 2021.
Really?
That's not the government's fault.
So and while they're like literally like Matt's talking about overproduction, and I remember 2 years ago, Hexo, a couple of other companies literally destroyed hundreds of thousands of plants, hundreds of thousands, and shut down entire greenhouses that they were in the process of building. Oh yeah. And like, it was out of nowhere. And we were doing business with one of them, or trying to, and one of the guys was like, hey, that plant I took you to where you made that big promotional video, it's gone. It's gone. And there were like 400,000 plants in this plant. It was near the Niagara region, or 200,000, one of the two. I know that's a big discrepancy, but hundreds of thousands of plants. And I said to him, why? And he goes, because everybody just assumed grow as much as you can, sell as much as you can, And all these different producers produce so much cannabis, they couldn't get rid of it fast enough. So what they had to do was destroy it. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of plants, right? Like that was it. And that was like, you would think if you had employed the gray market, or you would think if you had allowed the people that had been doing this for a long period of time into the business, they would have been able to see it coming. But to that point, government allows you to do this, and then you've got a bunch of people rushing into the middle to take over that space and achieve market dominance. And that was the goal, right? The goal was to get in, monetize, and get out. They didn't care how they left the industry in 4 or 5 years, did they?
Right, exactly. So furthering your point, in the big picture, my research found that cannabis, the largest cannabis producers, like the 5 largest ones, for example, they only sold 17 to 18% of what they produced in from 2018 to about 2020, 2021.
Holy shit.
What business can survive when you're only selling 18% of what you produce? No business can. No business that I'm aware of can survive. And so that's
how did they all get it so fucking wrong, though, Matt?
That's not the government's fault. How they got it wrong was okay. So they like you said, they thought they could grow. They thought that they could sell what they could grow. But kind of going back to a point I made earlier, they didn't think they were agricultural companies. So what they grew was garbage and unsellable. And with the stuff that did make it to the market, people hated. Remember 2018, 2019, people hated the weed that they bought in the legal market. It's a lot better
garbage.
Now. Yeah, it's a lot better now. But yeah, so I mean, they didn't acknowledge they were agricultural companies, so it means they couldn't grow cannabis. And this all happened because, okay, so how do you value a business that has no sales? No one knew at the time. So what they came up with was this bullshit thing called funded capacity. And so that means if your business was able to raise capital to build a greenhouse, then you had the funded capacity of, say, 200,000 kilograms. So there were like dozens or hundreds of, let's say dozens of licensed producers who raised billions of dollars from the capital markets in Toronto and New York City on the metric of funded capacity. The problem was we know what the demand is. The top line demand for cannabis in year 1, year 2, year 3 was something like 100,000 kilograms in 2019, 200,000 kilograms in 2020, and then it ramped up from there. It's probably around 600,000, 500,000 kilograms today. Of course, within that 500,000 kilograms, you have all kinds of categories, but I'm just saying like the top line demand is this X number, and we know what that is. So as an industry, we knew what the demand was. It was 100 to 500,000 kilograms. What they did was they not only bankrolled, but they built greenhouses around Canada to produce billions of grams of cannabis, hundreds of thousands of kilograms of cannabis. So right away, you just had a math problem. There was more supply than demand. I mean, I wrote a story in, when did I write it? I think 2018, that said that by 2018, cannabis producers had already bankrolled, investors had already bankrolled enough capacity, enough supply to meet demand in the legal market. And that in the years after that, they made way more greenhouses. And of course, since then, all those greenhouses, almost all of them, have been sold off for pennies on the dollar.
Right, they're shutting down.
We're talking about $300 million greenhouses here, 200 to 300 or 400 $1 million greenhouses. Even in the strawberry industry and in the greenhouse industry, those guys laughed at the cannabis companies because they said they wouldn't pay $50 million for any of these greenhouses. And sure enough, now that those $300 million greenhouses are hitting the market because they can't sell cannabis, they're being sold for in between $10 and $50 million.
Fucking bizarre. You know what it is? And it's such a trite word, but it's greed, right?
It is greed. It's just total greed. Yeah.
And it's stupidity too, because like you would think someone would be able to forecast those amounts without going over and above by millions of ounces, right? Like you would think
everyone thought the whole country was going to start smoking weed, though.
Yeah,
that's what everybody thought. Woo!
Yeah,
I kept saying on the show when we were talking about legalization leading up to it in 2017, I was like, there's no way that it's just going to automatic. You'll get the odd guy that'll go, oh, hey, listen, I've never done this. It's legal now. Maybe I'll go grab myself a joint and me and the crib club will have a puff on the weekend while we're at, but the thing is, no one did. Like, I didn't change my routine.
But that was by design. That was by design, by the way. And
why?
Because the federal government doesn't want people to start smoking cannabis.
Well, they're idiots.
They want to regulate the consumers that already exist. That's why they don't allow advertising. I'm in favor of that. I don't think that.
Hey, we're terrible business people if that's their plan. Like, you want people to use. If you have not enjoyed a beautiful indica, 26 to 30%, at 9:30 at night, followed by 10 milligrams of melatonin. Don't worry about that dog. I love dogs. Followed by 10.
Sorry.
You are missing the boat. If you haven't used cannabis at a party, if you haven't had one of these, because some of the cannabis drinks are actually pretty good, the edibles suck. But if you're not as a company or a country that has legalized this plant, looking to get this in the hands of people that drink too much, people with chronic pain, creating a new market, creating really cool recreational stuff, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. Like, have you been to California? Have you purchased cannabis in California ever, Matt?
I've never been to California, but I have purchased cannabis in like Nevada and other places.
Same thing. It's a weed wonderland. It is what, if you can think it, they have it. 5,000 milligram chocolate bars, no problem. Tinctures that are 10,000 milligrams, you got it. We have kneecapped ourselves in that department to the point where it's almost redundant to buy edibles or something to drink in any cannabis store or any OCS, because it's like capped at 10 milligrams, right? Or 2.5. I mean, it's good for dosing and all that other stuff. But it's like, oh my God, we still have this same preventative attitude, but it only applies to people that consume this plant. It didn't apply to the people that bastardized the entire industry when it got legalized. They're like, yeah, fuck, rush in, destroy the economy if you want, try and create something. But at the very least, and this was my son's thing when he found out you were coming on the show today, he's like, can you ask him why they've chosen business over product, over excellent product, and the people that use it and addressing those issues? Because to me, that seems like the easiest growth plan there is putting up a commercial of like my mom or my dad who now use CBN spray to sleep, and it's changed their lives. It's another derivative of CBD. It's like one of these things that's in the plant, helps you sleep. It's a long story. But they use the spray and they go to sleep. And I'm like, that's your market, right? All these people to address real life situations that you need this for, going back to the public health thing. But it's fucking bizarre because it's like we, again, decided that we would just allow anybody to come in and destroy the process first before we decided to get it right.
Yeah, I think like from the government's perspective, it's about what's palatable for the electorate and also what's good for public health. And so that's why they didn't allow, and to be totally honest with you, I'm in favor of that. I mean, it depends what kind of society you want to live in. I don't want to live in a place like Nevada or New York State where you're going to see weed, like billboards everywhere you go and everywhere you turn, and commercials everywhere, and there's cannabis advertising everywhere. Personally, I just don't want to live in a place like that. But I mean, like we were talking about earlier, I just think there's I guess weed legalization wasn't unanimous. Okay, there were people in Canada who were very opposed to it. So to make it palatable for the whole population, they had to do it slowly. And remember, Canada was the first country to do this, the first, besides Uruguay. So I mean, we had to do it slow. If you did it quickly, you risked losing an election and then rolling back what the gains that we already achieved. And by doing it slow, I hate the federal government, but I think they did it right. I think they did cannabis legalization right. So I'll defend them there. But like I said, yeah, it depends what kind of society you want to live in. Do you want?
I got to disagree with you, Matt. I'm kind of with Dean on this. Not that we need to gang up on you or anything like that, but I think that the recreational side of this is being ignored from an advertising perspective. And maybe it's because I see the potential dollars rolling into a radio station or a weed sponsorship for my morning show. Maybe I'm just selfish that way.
Spin-off economy, yeah.
But I do you think, and let me ask you a question, because you've got a situation where pot was always a recreational thing. Weed, marijuana, whatever the hell you want to call it, was always a recreational thing.
Cheech.
And then anybody who mentioned the possibility of it being used for medical purposes kind of got, yeah, that's
yeah, it was
great.
like that
We'll get
excuse
to
where
that.
you're like, oh, whatever, dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. It's
but,
you use it for pain. Ooh.
Do you think that we do damage to the possibility of this drug that being used as medicine? If we treat it more like a recreational thing from an advertising perspective, and is that why you think that the government did the right thing and how they rolled this thing out with the restrictions?
I think if they allowed advertising, like, okay, let's just look at I think Ontario just legalized like single game betting, right?
Yeah.
And when I watch a hockey game now, all I see is betting advertisements, and I don't like that. And now I have to talk to my like small children about what is gambling and why you shouldn't gamble until you're older and you have money to lose.
You should really be teaching them about money lines instead of telling them why it's bad. Hit them.
But I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, we would be inundated with cannabis commercials if they allowed advertising. So I think they're doing it right. And in terms of public health, their goal is to get dollars away from the illicit market toward the regulated market, which makes for a healthier society for various reasons. Mm-hmm. And from that perspective, they're doing it right. A lot of people are really mad that you see newspaper articles all the time that legalization has failed because the black market still exists. The black market is going to exist for decades, for the rest of our lives. It's never going to go away completely. But I think, Statistics Canada thinks they've corralled about 2/3 of the illicit market, but the real number is probably around 50%. But that's still a success in my eyes because we only legalized it 3.5 years ago. Like, this is very, very new still. Over time, they're going to loosen rules. I have no doubt they're going to loosen rules over time. So if you went all in and you didn't have a lot of rules, you would be in a scenario where the next incoming government would probably backslide on some of that stuff. But now, because they did it really strictly, you're going to have future governments slowly loosening up on rules in terms of all kinds of stuff. So
you don't think that the conservative government standing in the wings, old PP there, ready to take over the leadership of the country, do you think there's a possibility that he might go, all right, guys, you had your fun?
I think there's no chance.
No more pot for you.
Yeah, I think there's no chance of that happening because there are a lot of conservatives that are already on the boards of directors of huge cannabis companies.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's a lot of people just think it's liberals, but a lot of conservatives are currently or were on the boards of cannabis companies. Brian Mulroney is on a board of a company. I mean, all kinds of people are.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. Brian Mulroney, Julian Fantino. I mean, there's so many people that are connected to the Conservative Caucus, Conservative Party, Conservative Special Interests that have taken advantage of this. Like we're talking about, they are involved with the people that have absolutely fucked this up. But at the same time, they've got a vested interest too, which is interesting. So I hope what you're saying is true, Matt. Lemers from MJbiz Online, MJbiz Daily Online is our guest. At Matt_Lemers is where you can find him. Really appreciate you being here. Just wanted to introduce you to our people because I'd love to have you back and talk a little bit more ongoing about, the cannabis industry and what appears to be really a messed up, slow rollout. And please follow Matt. If you're interested in the business of cannabis, he's the best follow online. Again, at Matt_Lemers is where you can find him. His information is in the description. Matt, I appreciate you being here, brother. Thank you so much. I think Alok's got one more question, though.
One more quick thing. The next time we have you back, we need to talk about your delusion around Toronto and the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some pretty deranged Maple Leafs views, but it's not my fault. They did it to me.
Yeah, they did it. And Matt's with me on the McDavid wants to come to Toronto rumor too.
Exactly.
We don't control the rumors. We don't control the rumors, do we? You and I know. We don't control the rumors. I'm pretty sure it's happening. Anyway,
Can I
Matt,
just make one more point about
please.
About weed, or do you have to?
Yeah, totally.
No.
Okay, so in terms of like, why did they produce so much? They got the demand forecasting wrong, but another main reason was that they thought they could export all of the surplus capacity that they produced in Canada. So they thought they could export, so you can only export medical cannabis. You can't export recreational cannabis, by the way. But that's fine because there are only medical markets overseas. There are no recreational markets, no federally regulated recreational markets besides Canada and Uruguay. So they thought they could export the excess capacity, but the problem was the overseas markets back then and still today are so small that they're basically irrelevant. So you have the biggest medical market in the world outside of Canada, biggest federally regulated market outside of the world, outside Canada is Germany, and Germany only imports approximately 10,000 kilograms of medical cannabis per year. To give you an idea of how small that is, Canadian producers have over 100,000 kilograms sitting in their vaults as we speak of cannabis that's just rotting. It's going to basically be destroyed.
Makes me sad.
Can't you just put it in the freezer? I mean,
it's an agricultural product, right? So you could put it in the freezer and you could consume it later on.
Freezer. You need like a big old freezer, like one that they have at the keg or in meat packing plants.
But
or something
no one's
like
going to want to buy it. I mean, because you could just buy fresh stuff.
Yeah, that's the
thing.
thing.
What's interesting about the 10,000 kilograms that went to Germany? I actually have a friend that consumed 10,000 last year.
Well, maybe it's 20,000 then.
Matt, thanks
for
doing this.
Bees now.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Everybody that smokes a ton of cannabis has a weird hobby that includes keeping bees or ant farms or something like that. We're good people. Matt, thanks for doing this, brother. Great to meet you. Great to introduce you to our people, and hopefully we can have you back real soon as we as the cannabis industry still continues to try to find its legs in this country. Again, I'm a big fan of regulated cannabis. I really, really am. But, the business of it and the people that have taken advantage of the industry, that's something I want to get to. And it's a fascinating industry as well. So thanks for doing this, man. Great to meet you and great to finally have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. We'll talk to you soon. There you go, bud. Matt Lemers, MJbiz Daily Online.
The spelling of his Twitter handle on our.
That's impossible.
It's LMARS.
LMAR. You're missing a vowel, I think.
Yeah, no, you put Matt dash underscore LEMERS. It's Matt underscore LAMER.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's all good. I'm just letting people know because they're going to want to follow him, right?
Not perfect. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Rod Black is still set to join us. He's going to come in around 4 o'clock. So 15 minutes from now, we're going to talk a little bit about this LIV Golf Tour business. The RBC Canadian Open is this weekend as well, which Rod is at. And we'll talk about the reaction as more people start, making their way out of the PGA Tour and the PGA Tour of America and the PGA Tour of Canada and making their way to this crazy LIV Golf Tour, which has been fucking wild to watch.
Yeah.
Crazy to watch. We're
it's
also
interesting.
Talk about
it really is.
What, this golf tour?
Do you think it's the end of the PGA?
No.
Okay.
No, but it's like I've never seen I'm a weird dude, right? Like I love golf. I have these ideas when it comes to communicating content to people that have been with me for a long period of time. One of them is if you're doing content like this, nobody wants to talk about sports. Like just don't talk about it. And one of the things that they used to tell me on radio was like, if you're doing an alternative rock show, you never, ever, ever want to talk about golf. Right. So when this story broke and I started to see, players on the PGA Tour decide that they wanted to leave the PGA Tour and go to this new LIV Golf Tour, I didn't pay attention to it for like the first 2 weeks. This has been like a month and a half coming. Right. Rumors of this
really touched on it, have we?
Saudi Golf Tour. No, we haven't. And here's the deal. The Saudi government, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, who's the official leader and of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's like the de facto dictator. He's in charge of the military. He's in charge of everything. He had that guy, Jamal Khashoggi, killed. You remember he was a reporter for the Washington Post.
Direct link to him in that death in the investigation. And the interesting thing about this story, though, I mean, the reason why I think we can get away with talking about it, because I know a majority of our audience is not huge on the sports combo on this podcast, but this has geopolitical ramifications, like huge geopolitical ramifications. It does. We're legitimizing a guy that had somebody killed that he disagreed with, that had an American passport, that was a journalist.
Yeah.
Had him killed in his own embassy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And didn't really worry too much about covering it up.
No. It was like, remember the months following his murder, Jamal Khashoggi's murder. You remember that? It was like, oh yeah, sounds of people using bone saws and choking and audio recordings. And then when they figured out that it was him, this MBS dude who's in charge of Saudi Arabia and a bunch of his henchmen, he's like, oh yeah, I didn't tell him to do that. Anyway, they did it. Long story short, no big deal. I'll make sure I take care of these jackasses here, these jackwagons. All of them never did any jail time. They all got promoted. They're all still working for him. Anyway, as part of this thing called sport washing, which we talked about a little bit in terms of Russia, when they started getting their World Cup appearances taken away from them. F1 decided they weren't doing business in Russia anymore after the invasion of Ukraine. Sport washing became a thing. We had Craig Forrest on from our Footy Prime podcast to talk about it, and how dictatorial governments and asshole regimes will use sports as a way to wash criminal activity or make people think that they're not as bad of a kingdom or country or group of individuals as they really are.
I've got a golf tournament.
Look at me. I got a golf tournament.
That's an interesting point, because look at the pressure we put on Russia for the cheating scandals and their human rights violations, right? We're not going to let you compete in the Olympics. But now we've got major high-profile athletes with American passports that are legitimizing what do you call Saudi Arabia?
Murderous regime?
A murderous regime by joining his hobby golf league.
Yeah.
Like, it's bizarre. The story's bizarre.
Yeah, the story is bizarre, and you would think in a time when we live in this weird cancel culture bubble that guys like Dustin Johnson, who's playing in that event, it's in London, England, guys like Phil Mickelson, guys like Kevin Na, guys like Graham McDowell, guys like Taylor Gooch, Taylor Pyatt, like legitimate PG. Name. Yeah, Gooch. I know. Gooch. It's the best of my favorite name on the tour. That and Charles Schwartzel, who's also playing in this event. Those guys would go, being mindful of what happened and what the Saudi government did in murdering a journalist. I don't want to throw my lot in there. But listen, here's the thing. Every single person that's on Twitter needs to understand this. The Saudi government owns a large portion. The biggest bankrolling investor, stakeholder in Twitter is MBS, the Saudi government. So if you have a major issue with the LIV Tour and these guys deciding to do business with the Saudi government, then you should probably have an issue with Twitter. And if you don't, and if you're like, no, that's different. If you don't, then you want to probably look at your own government, specifically in the United States. They've had a habit of killing people over the years that haven't deserved it. Our government, we're not fucking innocent either. We're still doing business with Saudi Arabia. We're buying oil by the fucking freighter from MBS in Saudi Arabia. We're sending them weapons.
Trudeau family has stakes in the Saudi government's oil.
Maybe they do. I don't know. But what I can tell you is this, that if everybody out there, and I can't wait to talk to Rod Black about it, he's coming up at 4:00. But if everybody out there that's shitting all over these golfers had and has these principles with which they think all of those guys should be operating, then they're going to have to fucking ante up and hold everybody that does any business with this murderous regime accountable. Get off Twitter. Stop driving your car, because guess what's in it? Saudi gas.
Not in Alberta, you dicks.
Don't vote for this government ever, because you know what the government does of Canada? You know what they have direct ties with the Saudi government, and they do billions in business with the Saudi government every year. And that is not going to change because of what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. So my point is this, is that yes, reputationally speaking, it's incredibly un-American and very insensitive for every golfer to go and play on that tour. However,
they're doing.
If you actually big picture the whole thing, it really kind of isn't. Like, it's just doing business. And Phil Mickelson, and we've got a clip of it. I want to play this for you. Phil Mickelson was asked about that yesterday. What's that?
Are we going to get blocked on YouTube?
I don't know, because this is a LIV Golf Tour conference, and apparently it's all happening on YouTube, and there's no ownership because they've offered it for free. So, yeah, we might get dinged for it. We might not. If we do, I'll take it out. But I want you to listen to Phil Mickelson's explanation. Now, Phil's a little bit different because Phil is an egregious asshole, right? So you can.
He's got a wild gambling problem. He lost $40 million in the last couple of years.
Yeah, he did gambling because he's a fucking general.
Family in trouble. Like he's
he's a fucking piece of shit. Anyway, this is Phil being asked about golfing. Oh yeah, being asked about golfing for the Saudi government and doing the sport washing business. Fucking awkward. Watch this.
I don't condone human rights violations. I don't know how I can be any more clear. I understand your question. But again, I love this game of golf. I've seen the good that it's done, and I see the opportunity for LIV Golf to do a lot of good for the game throughout the world, and I'm excited to be a part of this opportunity.
Phil, you also spoke about leverage. You used the word leverage. And here you are sitting representing the very people you were using to leverage. How do you explain that?
I've really enjoyed my time on the PGA Tour. I've had some incredible experiences, some great memories, and I have a lot of strong opinions on things that should and could be a lot better. One of the mistakes I've made is voicing those publicly. So I will really make an effort to keep those conversations behind closed doors going forward. I think that's the way to be the most efficient and get the most out of it.
Bill, can you just clarify? You've apologized again just now. Can you just clarify what you're apologizing for? Is it you're sorry for speaking the truth about the Saudis, or are you sorry for the shameless hypocrisy of taking their money anyway?
I understand that many people have very strong opinions and may disagree with my decision. And I can empathize with that. But at this time, this is an opportunity that gives me a chance to have the most balance in my life going forward, and I think this is going to do a lot of good for the game.
Phil, can you tell me if you are serving a ban or have served
I'm sorry, say again?
Can you tell me if you've served a ban or are serving a ban with the PGA Tour?
I choose not to speak publicly on PGA Tour issues at this time.
Okay. Can you say if you're going to play in next week's US Open?
I will play next week's US Open. I'm looking forward to it.
Ooh.
This stance.
Yeah, his body language was awesome, wasn't it? That's a dude that's like
I had no idea
really
he was
conflicted.
A piece of shit.
Oh, huge piece of shit. Yeah. He's a huge piece of shit. He's always been a piece of shit. Why is there
so many golfers that are?
I don't know. And there's so many good guys on tour too, right? Like, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know a couple of them, and they all have the same opinion of Phil. That Phil, for a long time, was a dick, and in his waning years on the tour, in his late 40s, he started to lighten up. People started to like him, and then, of course, he won. If you remember last year, he won the PGA Championship, or was it the U.S. Open? I can't remember. I think it was the PGA. It was the PGA Championship.
It was the PGA. I'm pretty sure.
He's 50, right? It was like the oldest guy to ever win a major, and it reinvigorated his career and all that other stuff. And then all of a sudden, some guy writes a book, and he quotes Phil Mickelson calling Saudis dangerous motherfuckers and scary motherfuckers, and he didn't trust them.
He was not happy about that quote getting out.
And so what Phil is talking about there, which I find interesting, is he's saying that he may have been punished by the PGA Tour making it a lot easier for him to make the decision as to whether or not he was going to take $200 million from MBS and the Saudi government to legitimize this sport washing tour of LIV Golf, right? And he decided to do it. And again, I mean, for a guy like Phil, it's a little different. He's using this as a vehicle to recoup something, get money, some of that gambling money back that he lost over the past couple of years, $30-40 million. He's using this as an opportunity to get away from all the the bright lights and the cameras and the judgment on the PGA Tour because he's upset the old boys club. But what I found really interesting about that is the fact that he's like, I can't talk. I'm not going to talk about the PGA Tour. When the guy was like, hey, listen, here's the deal. I heard you were suspended and big shit, and the PGA Tour didn't want you back. And he's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm here to play on this tour. But I also love the fact, like, this is in England. One of the things that you need to know about the British press is they give no fucks. They don't care. They'll ask you any question, anytime. They don't care who you are. So when you heard those legitimate questions being asked by legitimate reporters going, hey, tell us about why you're leveraging a murderous government to bring change to the PGA Tour, Phil was like clearly upset and clearly pissed off about that question because Phil doesn't care about anybody other than Phil. That has always been the case. And if you ask anybody who's ever played on tour, they'll tell you the same thing. Phil only cares about Phil. He never cared about the PGA Tour. He never cared about the legacy of golf. He cared about his place in the game. That was it. That's all. And so now Phil is saying that, yes, I'm going to play in the U.S. Open. And he's resigned from the PGA Tour. Like, I know these guys all plan, like Dustin Johnson, I know these guys all plan on playing in majors. He said that yesterday. I'm exempt. And Phil has a lifetime exemption on the PGA Tour because he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest golfers to ever play the game. And so he can literally walk in and out of that tour. So I would be very fascinated to see how the PGA Tour treats him after that press conference and playing in his first event as a LIV Tour golfer. Fascinating.
I think I heard something today just before we jumped on from somebody that was a representative of it's the PGA Tour next week, right?
The RBC Canadian Open is this week.
This week,
the U.S. Open is next week. Yeah.
U.S. Open. So it was somebody from the U.S. Open speaking about the possibility of people from LIV coming back next week to participate in that major. And he was like, listen, we have a rule book. And just because the PGA Tour might be upset about what's happening right now, that doesn't mean we're allowed. That doesn't mean they can force new rules on us. Mm-hmm. He goes, we're following the rule book. And if the rule book says these guys have a lifetime exemption, we're going to let them play. That was somebody that was representing that actual tournament, not the PGA. But that's what you're dealing with now, because the tour is going, you guys, you screwed us. You're never going to.
Organizers are going, no, we want that guy at our fucking tournament, so fuck you.
So, and the other ones are like, DJ is a draw. We like, I don't care where he plays. There's nothing in the rule book that suggests that he can't play this tournament. So we're letting him. So this is blowing up. It's fascinating. I keep going back and forth because I heard Graham speak, and he hasn't won anything.
McDowell? No, yeah, he hasn't won anything since 2011. Yeah,
2011, 2010, something like that. And they asked him a really hard question, right? And like they were throwing it at him too, and he was like, you know what? Listen, I golf. This is what I do, and I don't get into geopolitics. You know what I mean? Like I completely understand what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and listen, I do too. It doesn't change, that it is going to be a terrible look. But in the end, Saudi Arabia will get what they want out of this. The players will get what they want out of this. The PGA Tour has been shook to the fucking foundation because just announced 5 minutes ago, Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed, notorious golf asshole as well, and Ricky Fowler.
He's a dick too.
Total dick. Ricky Fowler are leaving the PGA Tour to go and play on this LIV Golf Tour.
Are they going this weekend?
And Bryson, outside of 5 or 6 golfers on the tour right now, might be the biggest draw on the PGA Tour.
Is Bryson a dick?
No, next weekend.
Like,
Bryson's a dick too. Bryson also notorious golf dick. There isn't a player on the tour that likes the guy. You didn't know Bryson DeChambeau was a huge golf dick. He's like the biggest. He's like Mickelson 2.0, dude. He's like Mickelson 2.0. Yeah.
I knew that he was fighting with that other guy they were on
Brooks
the US
Koepka.
in the Ryder Cup.
Brooks Koepka's brother has just joined this tour. Like, everybody's migrating to this tour, and the only card the PGA Tour has to play is, hey, that guy's a fucking dictator. Well, let's look at the PGA Tour's success with racism over the years. Only in the last several years, maybe 15, 20, have women been treated almost as equals. Only in racism and misogyny. For hundreds of years, black people, Jewish people, women were not allowed to golf at certain PGA Tour golf courses.
Crazy.
I mean, there are lots of fucking hateful things you can hang on the PGA Tour and the Masters and organizers and the culture in the sport of golf.
Masters was like very
Masters
bad.
was like super racist.
So racist.
Super racist. Do you remember they didn't have a female member until like the last 7 years? Not one.
I think it was
Jews,
literally like
black people.
5
No
years
one was
ago.
allowed to. Yeah, it was Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State. They're like, okay, you can come in. Like, what the fuck? But golf has been historically racist. Like you can find something wrong with everything here, right? Everything, and so you can kind of focus on the deal. It's like, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some highlights from the LIV Golf Tour. Like, as much as I fucking hate the entire idea around it, I'm like, bunch of like shitty old golfers and golfers who didn't make it playing with some dinosaurs and a few of the top rated golfers in the world. Yeah, I want to watch that 54-hole event, shotgun start. I mean,
it's a shotgun thing?
It's a shotgun start. It's like a fucking drunken scramble. And they've got these like these team games where it's like the cruising aces play against the flaming lips or the dead dragons or the black aces or something like that. Like, they're teams of 4, 12 groups of 4 that have these goofy names and weird titles and they're all going to be wearing weird. It's just like fucking, it's a brand new thing. So if it's not the Saudi government doing, let's just say this is Jeff Bezos and he's like, for shits and giggles, here's $5 billion, go start your own golf tour. Everybody would go to this tour. Like, literally every player on the PGA Tour would go, I'm in.
You're talking about
there's no downside,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just take out the political ramifications, take out the fight between the PGA Tour and LIV and the players, and take that out of there. If this was an option, that brings up an interesting question. And again, I overheard somebody talking about these pickup leagues, these competitive leagues. When they start, they always fold. They never actually make it. But there's something different here. Like, nobody from the NFL, like a whole bunch of people didn't start running to the XFL.
Yeah, Tom Brady isn't taking a snap behind center in the XFL ever.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes this difference. They're getting major talent to commit to this tour. And again, like I said to you, I understand the money thing, and everyone's like, what do you mean? Why are they doing it? Okay, yes, they're throwing a lot of money around at these players, but the thing is that they're giving up potentially the PGA is the epitome of golf.
Yeah.
It's the top of the rung.
It's the holy grail for golfers.
These guys got there, played there, competed there, became famous in that arena, and they're walking away. There's got to be more to it. Walking
away with like promised consequences. Like they know something bad is going to happen to either their reputation or their ability to play on the PGA Tour down the road.
They're walking away from as egregious as the PGA Tour is, what we know, their past.
Yeah.
There's got to be more to it about how they treat the golfers, the professional athletes that are currently there.
Totally.
There has to be more to it.
Totally.
Because that's got to be a motivating factor. Anybody that sits, nobody makes rash decisions. I mean, we can take Mickelson out of it because he's in debt. He gambled his house away. But most reasonable minded individuals will sit down and go, all right, pro, con. Should I move to Edmonton from Winnipeg? Right? I did this, my wife and I, and we clicked off the pros and the cons. And when the list on the pro move side is bigger, you go, right?
You move.
You make a change.
So
company you've been with for 10 years, 15 years in radio.
So
they had to have done this.
For each individual golfer, this is going to be different, right? The reason that they went into the LIV Tour, the reason that they gave up their PGA Tour status, the reason they resigned from the PGA Tour, which is the holy grail. It's like if someone said to you, how do you put this into terms a Canadian, non-golfing Canadian would understand? Here's how I would put it in terms. It would be like guys leaving the NHL to go play in the KHL. If the KHL was a brand new league. Like literally leaving.
The
And you did see
was
it.
Paying millions of dollars.
Well, you saw it with guys like Kovalchuk, who left and went and played and came back for a cup of tea, wasted his best and most performative and most productive years in the KHL. But he got paid, and if you asked him if he has any regrets, he will tell you yes, he does. He said that in an interview. He's like, no, I went back to China. I went back to Russia, and I played, and I was near my family and all that other stuff. But he tried to come back, and he tried to make a go of it at the end of his career, and it was a wash. It just was terrible. Played a little bit for LA, and then he played a little bit for Montreal, if you remember, and it was just like, fuck, whatever. He just left because no one wanted him anymore. And part of that it was like a reputational thing, but part of that is like he'd wasted his time in that league. There are no players like that in this league other than Dustin Johnson, and he is one of the best golfers in the world. He's already won a Masters and a couple of majors, so he doesn't give a shit. Greg Norman, he's the commissioner. He knows everybody hates him, and he doesn't care, and he's a multi-millionaire, maybe even a billionaire. So he doesn't care. Nicholas said, no, not interested because he's got ties to a bunch of different shit, and his political stuff is a little bit different than everybody else's, even though he's a Trump fan. Who cares? I don't care about any of that. But each person here is getting something different out of this. With a guy like Phil lost 40, 50 million gambling over the past couple of years. His wife, Amy's probably pissed because she can't afford all the stuff he used to be able to afford. And he wants to put some food on the table. And he hates the PGA Tour. And he's been punished by the PGA Tour for the comments he made about the same people that just gave him $200 million. So whatever. Bottom line is, if you take the fact that the Saudi government isn't funding this, every player on the PGA Tour goes. Every player.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, for that money, every player. Because this is a fucking fun event. Like, part of this is like, that's why I'm excited to watch it. And I feel terrible that I
don't know
am.
if I'll watch it.
Oh, you have to, dude.
Do you?
You have to. Yeah, because like 80% of the players in the field, no one's ever heard of.
Doesn't that make me kind of like supporting it a bit?
Supporting what? Golf? Or supporting the Saudi government? No. I mean, get off Twitter then. Stop driving your car. Stop driving your car. If you feel
we don't have Saudi gas and oil in Alberta.
Yeah, yes, you do. You have a ton of it.
Do not.
Yes, you do. You've got a ton of it.
Stops at the Montreal, or stops at the Manitoba border.
I don't think that's the case.
We got Blackie coming on or what?
Yeah, we do. I'm just sending him the actual thing. He's pinwheeling right now. He said, "I'm like, what does pinwheeling mean?" But Rod Black is going to join us, and I'd love to get his take on it too, because it's fucking such a huge story, like just enormous. I don't know that I don't know if I've ever seen a golf story like this in my life. Like it's bigger than it's huge. Bigger than Tiger. It seriously is. This is bigger than anything Tiger has ever done.
The Waffle House,
including crushing all those Waffle House waitresses 12 years ago. Do you remember too? Do you remember when like the list of do you remember when the list of women came out that he was with?
Yeah.
And that list was like, and then you started seeing pictures of those women, and you're like, this is going to be the biggest story in the history of golf. And it was. This is bigger.
Okay.
This is literally bigger.
This comic on Netflix on Bill Burr's new thing that just went up. It's like Killers or something. And he brings a bunch of his buddies comics up. And there was this one guy, and he started talking about, damn it, I forget his name, Adam something. He was talking about Tiger Woods and about why he would leave that beautiful blonde, wife of his, right? Or why he would fool around on him. And he's like, well, because the Waffle House waitress licked his ass.
There's something to it. Right. So one of these people's like, why did you cheat on that beautiful woman? It's like, well, there's things she does not do.
We're all very primal.
There's things she doesn't do.
Day.
Yeah. Did you see? Have you ever seen the Tiger Woods texts that some of the girls leaked? Oh my God. Some of them are just vile. Like some of the most vile stuff in the world. Anyway, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Blackie is backy. Rod Black, ladies and gentlemen. We had some technical issues. Here he is, Rod Black, the man, the myth, the legend.
Thanks for having me. See you guys again.
Nice to see you.
See you guys soon. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Dude, we waxed about the LIV Golf Tour, and I'm so excited to have you here because if you follow Rod on Twitter at Rod Black TV, he's a great follow. Also, brand ambassador for North Star Bet, by the way, broadcaster, storyteller, and good friend of mine. But can you believe? Angus Glen Hockey League star. You got it all.
Yeah.
No. Can you believe the heat around this LIV golf stuff? Like, it's just unbelievable. What's your take on it? Because we've just gone through the whole thing, and I want your take too, because you know some of the people involved. I know you're involved in the RBC Canadian Open. I'm sure you talked to some people down there about the insanity, but what's your take?
Well, this thing, LIV, is living and breathing, and right now it's a bit of a monster. I think anybody who didn't take this thing seriously, or didn't take Greg Norman seriously, or didn't take the prospect of a rival league, I guess you can call it, seriously, they are behind right now. And I will tell you that there's some serious traction to this thing. Like it or hate it, whatever it is, it's a money. Some people call it a money grab, but it's business. It's business, as they say.
Yeah,
there's some big names there. It's unfortunate. I feel that this week the RBC Canadian Open has been right up against this, but they've seen it coming for a while. Patrick Reed was in the field the other day. I was down at one of the pro-ams, and I'm looking at the field for the RBC Canadian Open and looking at, Rory McIlroy and Justin Thomas and the big names and all the Canadians, Scotty Scheffler and Patrick Reed. And then, of course, we heard yesterday that Patrick Reed has withdrawn, and now Patrick Reed is on his way overseas to play in the LIV. I don't like the optics of all of that. I think the players have every right to choose whatever they do. I honestly do believe that. But I do think the PGA Tour has been caught a little bit off guard. I don't think they anticipated that there would be the amount of defections, you guys, that they've had, including some big names. Keep in mind, there are a lot of middle-aged players who, they want their pot of gold and the money's up. Hey, the money's there. There's tons of money. I think it's going to be unique. Do I think it's going to be the PGA Tour? No, not by any stretch. Do I think it's going to be the USFL? No, I don't think that either. I think this thing has legs. I think it can. And I think it could be like the WHA. And I go back a long way, the World Hockey Association. That was a threat to the NHL and eventually allowed them in. I think this is a big threat to the European Tour. I really do believe that. A lot of Euro players, like, let's face it, look down the list. You see some big names. The obvious ones, Dustin Johnson and Patrick Reed and Phil Mickelson and Westwood and Sergio Garcia and Bryson DeChambeau. And guess what? They're not coming back. They're not playing the PGA Tour anytime soon because of this. But you look at the rest of the names, they're not even household names in their own house.
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them.
Like 70% of the field, no idea who they are.
But I will tell you guys, it is it is a monster that has been created by Greg Norman. It's a real FU to the PGA Tour in many ways. Phil Mickelson looks like he's been homeless for a few months. Did you see him in the Unabomber?
Yeah.
Has been. Yeah. But, and despite what Phil said, I mean, look at all his comments. I was surprised that even the Saudis would take him in after what he said, but it's happened. It's here. It's real. And now they've got to deal with it. And again, the media are having a heyday at St. George's this week with everybody. And everybody's got to – they still don't know. Like, guys, the Ryder Cup. You can't play in the Ryder Cup. If you play
President's Cup.
The President's Cup. Can't play in the – those things. Can you play in the majors? Right now, yes. You can play in the U.S. Open.
That's what they were saying.
At Brookline, you can play in the Masters. But this thing is one of the biggest stories to hit golf. And it's been laying in the weeds because everybody said, oh, Greg Norman, it's never going to happen. Greg Norman has been the busiest guy with his thumbs, even though he almost sawed one of them off a couple of years ago. He's been a busy guy with his thumbs because I tell you what, money talks, BS walks. And right now, the money's talking for this Saudi league. I guess you guys know what LIV means, right?
Yeah, it's 54, right? It's Roman numerals for 54 because these tournaments only have 3 days, right? 54 holes.
And 54 holes, but it also is ultimately it was a system that was set up for young Swedish golfers years ago. Annika Sorenstam and others, that the ultimate goal, they called it Club 54 or something, Academy 54. The best score you can get in golf is 18 under par, allegedly, if you can get that. And that's what 54. And so it also transcended to this tour to become 54 holes. I think if they're smart, they rock and roll it. They make it different. They put mics on the players. If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna be the USFL of golf, the XFL, or Fox, don't have a glowing ball like what Fox did with a glowing puck, but maybe do something different. But they got Dustin Johnson. They've got some of the best in the world. It's going to be a fascinating weekend, you guys.
Yeah, no kidding. Locke?
I have a question. Like, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not an idiot. I understand, and you've already alluded to it. They're throwing money at these players, and these players are making a decision to go over there. It can't just purely be based on that. They're not that dumb. This is the PGA. There's got to be more to this. Like, is there a lot of dissension between the players and the PGA? And is there a lot of stuff we don't know about?
Like, is that feeding into it along with the money? Is that what you're asking?
Part of it?
I think there has to be something. I think that's the elephant in the room, which has been let out of the room now. And it's got a tattoo of LIV on it. I do think that. Yeah, there have been players through the years that have complained. Guys, go back in history. I mean, think about how the PGA Tour started. With Jack Nicklaus and others who broke away from the ranks of the blue coats and the sturdy, and they wanted to start their own tour, and it became the PGA Tour, which became this. I think the lack of rules, I think the is a big factor, but the bottom line is the money. This is an extraordinary amount. They're throwing money at these tournaments, and it's not only the 4 million that you could win, but it's they're team events within this, so you can win another 3. I know what people are going to say. I'm sure your chat room is full of hey, these are selfish, greedy athletes. Yeah, that's business. Look at baseball. Vladdy, Blunder, you're a huge Blue Jays fan. Vladdy Guerrero is going to sign a $500 million contract eventually. Yep. Golfers.
Yeah, but Mark Shapiro didn't kill Jamal Khashoggi.
No. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good one. That's the other thing. That's the other hazard of this. The human rights atrocities that have been committed, that are well documented overseas. Now, having said that, sports is full of Saudi money. If you go and watch the Breeders' Cup, who owns a lot of the horses? Just saying. Who owns some of the soccer teams in the world? Just saying.
Who's the biggest shareholder in Twitter?
Just saying. There you go. So now we know that greed is, I guess, one of the 7 deadly sins. One of those sins is part of golf now. A 7 deadly sin in an 18-hole dream that has become this platform for Greg Norman. He's always wanted to be a breakaway guy. He's always talked about this world tour. It's extraordinary that it's come to this point with as many defections. I don't think anybody thought that DeChambeau would go, that Dustin Johnson, who possesses maybe the best golf swing on the planet, would go.
What about Ricky Fowler? Ricky Fowler bolted today.
Ricky Fowler bolted. Hey, that goes back to your questions, Locke. Goes back to your question. There has to be some. It's there's
to be more than the money.
They're so pissed off.
It's got to be something else.
At probably a lot of these players, and I don't want to speak because I'm just a broadcaster and we're all messengers, and I've been around it for a long time, and you just even see it that they are treated kind of like cattle. You go here, you go there, you play the pro-am, you do this. Who wouldn't want to in their life? And I'm trust me, I'm ambivalent. I'm angry at the way this has become because I'm a big PGA Tour fan. I want to see the best on best. We want to see the NHL best on best, NBA best on best. But I also understand the athlete. I understand those players, especially like even a Mickelson, and the money that's available. And if somebody's throwing that at you, and if you could make more money and work less, well, you could work at Pearson Airport, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like I said that to Locke today.
I'm being facetious, but you know what? Hey, why if somebody's throwing that kind of cake at you, and you have really no restriction, and the thing that you can do is retire before they come at you with lawsuits, right? That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
What do you mean? Like the PGA Tour can come after some of these players?
Retiring. Mickelson hasn't said it yet, but those, in essence, they're walking away from the PGA Tour, correct? And so there's going to be some litigation. This is going to be litigious for sure.
It's going to get ugly.
I will tell you, the PGA Tour offices right now, oh my gosh, they're
shitting their pants.
Yes, they just ordered in about 10 dozen Depends for the weekend because this.
Well, speaking of ordering in, I'd hate to be the skip the dishes delivery guy to that building. Oh my,
like seriously.
Yeah.
Well, trust me, I'm a PGA Tour. I love what it has represented. I love what it means. I'm wonder you love the game. We love the game. I love watching the best on best. What I don't like watching, and this is the thing, I don't like watching a watered down product. And we've seen it through the years. And we saw it when Tiger got hurt and Tiger left. And everybody says, well, it's all Tiger. And then you saw players, that weren't playing. That in a few years ago, before the FedEx Cup, players that decided not to play in Canada, decided not to play the Greater Greensboro Open, for lack of a better, decided to play some of the lesser events and only played in the majors. Well, that's why the PGA Tour came up with rules, because they wanted for those purses to stay where they are, including in Canada. Hey, look at the RBC had to do. They had to basically buy and sign players so that they would make sure they had a great field. And then this week, 2 of those players are defectors, and they effectively fired them. And they effectively fired them. Graham McDowell, Dustin Johnson. It is honestly, it is like a cataclysmic event for golf. Could it become something great down the road? I always like to look at the bright side. Maybe it could be. Maybe we do have this great world tour. Maybe there is a merger that's going to come. Hey, that's why we're watching the National Football League today, and we have the Super Bowl. But I do think that the days of what we watched before, if this is successful in the way it's looking, I do think it has a very good chance of succeeding, and getting eyeballs, creating waves. The PGA Tour, as we know it, could be very, very different moving forward.
I completely agree, because, we've seen some of the biggest names in the game just entertain it, right? Like for a guy like Tiger, who that rumored $1 billion offer from LIV Golf to come and join the tour. I talked to someone yesterday, like, don't question it. He absolutely has not written this possibility off, because something you mentioned, less golf, fewer events, more fun, bum leg. billion. You tell me a guy like that who's clearly at the end of the spectrum. He's clearly done. Other players like him who are clearly done.
Still
other
the biggest
players
name in golf is Tiger Woods.
Without question. You telling me that if let's take the Saudi government out of it. Let's just say this is Jeff Bezos' money, and I said this to Locke earlier. It's a no-brainer for these guys. A financial and life balanced no-brainer, Rod.
I think there's a morality clause in it for a lot of them. I think they have to look themselves in the mirror. And Mickelson is, you can say what you want about Phil and the fig jam thing and all of that. But, those comments that he said to a reporter, which probably hurt him in the Saudis' eyes. I mean, truth or not, whatever again, you cannot ignore the human rights issues that have been put on the table. These players are going to have to look at themselves. And I do like what Phil Mickelson did say today and has said, is that maybe golf can make the world a better place. And we'll sing, we are the golf world, whatever.
I don't see it happening.
To be the line they're trying to feed these guys.
Hey, think about this. Let's go back. Just go back, rewind, and go back. Let's go back to when I was growing up and I was watching golf, and I loved and I'm a little older than you, Bunder, and I was watching, my heroes were Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player and Lee
Hubie Green.
Yeah, he's a beauty. Tommy Weiskopf. I was a little, Arnold was kind of past, Tom Watson. Imagine had that happened then, right? Had they said, World Golf Tour. Now, golf wasn't as popular as it is now, but could you imagine the spit hitting the fan? That would have happened. Could you imagine in the 80s when we should be looking back and, before Tiger, people should thank Greg Norman for changing golf because he did with what he wore and the way he played. And he was this, and Shelby Heroes and Fred Couples. Remember that era?
Yeah.
What if they did that? We would be having that same, and maybe we wouldn't even be talking about a PGA Tour at this point, but they didn't have power. And right now, they have power. Look at the Canadian men's soccer team right now. Look at the leverage they have. Look at the leverage. I think that was a brilliant move by those players. And I don't want to speak for the association or for John Herdman, but that was a brilliant move. The only thing that was not a good move in my mind, think about all those people who went to Vancouver to watch a game, right?
Yeah.
They bought tickets. Like the fans always getting it up the keister.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
When you have leverage and you have power and players, the NBA, they can move around. They can move around like they've never before. LeBron James has done it. They can choose where they want to play.
Yeah.
They can ask for trade. James Harden has done it 3 times in the last 2 years. I don't like it here. Okay, I'm gonna go play. Oh, by the way, I just want to let you guys. Oh, hang on. It's confirmed.
What's that?
I have just joined the LIV Golf League.
Nice.
Yeah. My 16 handicap has been accepted. Yes, I'm playing. Why did we say I'm playing on June 31st?
Congratulations.
Rod, you and I could golf together.
Yeah.
If we got a 16, it will.
You joke around about it, but Brooks Koepka's brother joined the tour. It's got to be the talk. Like you played in the Pro-Am, right? Down the RBC Canadian Open.
Played Monday, yeah.
Monday.
Everybody's talking. I was talking with Corey Connors was there, Mike Weir. They played, but there was more of a celebrity Pro-Am. There was Nick Nurse and Darcy Tucker and those guys. Everybody was talking about it.
What's the professionals' take on it that are still here, that are in town for the RBC Canadian? Not a word. Is that the deal?
Very tight-lipped. I think, I won't tell you who told. I talked to a lot of them.
Yeah.
They think it's a shit show. What's going on? Not the RBC Canadian Open. I think, by the way, what they've done at St. George's is remarkable. I think what RBC's done, I just feel bad for them. RBC has had to spend so much. If you go down to, trust me, all your viewers and listeners, if you're in Toronto area and you get a chance to go watch the Canadian Open, go watch it this week. Watch the Canadians. I'll make a bet right now. I think Corey Connors or a Canadian, maybe Mac Hughes, Adam Hadden, they're going to win the Canadian Open this week. I really believe that. And it's not because there's 20. It's because they deserve it and they're really good players. But it's fabulous. They got a hockey rink there. Of course, we're Canadian. You got to do some hockey. The course is magnificent. The clubhouse is magnificent. They've got Flo Rida playing on Friday night. They've got Maroon 5 playing on Saturday. Yeah. They have done everything possible. But you have to make, even as a bank that has kept the Canadian Open alive. We haven't had the Canadian Open for 3 years, right? Because of COVID. Imagine what they've gone through. And now they've got defections of players that they've signed that were loyal to them, that wore their crest, wore their tag. Now, they fired them, right? But if you're looking at whoever you are and you're throwing money into something in a product, and you got another product that might get more viewership this weekend, you've got to take a look at it very closely. And I'm not saying that they're walking away by any stretch, but it drives me crazy that the Canadian Open always has been saddled with this. I used to broadcast it for many years. I think I did 15 or 16 of them. Was very blessed and lucky to do those at Glen Abbey, mostly, some across Canada. It was my favorite event of the year, you guys. There was nothing like
much fun. Yeah.
So much fun. All the best of the best. It was the 5th major. And then we went through that wave where players weren't coming and it didn't have the purse money, the golf course, yada, yada, excuses. And what was the problem? Money. Well, a bank got involved. So I fear kind of right now for sponsorship. If you're a sponsor on the PGA Tour, all those sponsors, man, they're looking at it and they're going, unless there's some sort of massive litigation that happens and there's sue LIV or the Saudis say no, or Greg Norman decides to take up another sport, I don't know. I just think that there's a dragon out there right now and it has LIV on it.
Yeah, me too. Lock.
Rod, quickly, I don't know how involved you are, or if you know the organizers really well from the Canadian Open, but just throw this, the RBC.
Rod's he's the ambassador for
connected.
Yeah, he knows everybody.
Yeah.
I'm the ambassador for bad golf. And here's another one. Oh, guys, it's official. It's confirmed. Yes, Titleist has signed me to $1 million contract, not to play their clubs.
Just table this at the next meeting, Rod, for next year's entertainment. Kenny Shields passed away, but Street Heart is continuing on without him. So Street Heart.
Grew up with them, man.
Throw that in the mix. Yeah,
my thumb.
You should have thrown them. If that's entertainment, man.
Kenny Shields wore the glove before Michael Jackson wore the glove too. You guys remember that?
I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate it.
Big boys, no
kids, you name them, I had them, man. Lover Boy. Dang it.
He's just going through the Rolodex.
What's the lead singer of Loverboy?
Mike. What's his last name? Mike Reno. Mike Reno. That's his name. Lead singer of Loverboy.
Oh, I gotta tell you, this is a funny story. A few years ago, I loved Loverboy growing up in the Peg, and the Peg was the rock and roll capital of Canada.
Is that loving every minute of it? Is that Loverboy? Loving every minute of it. Is that Loverboy? I think it is, right?
And Hot Girls in Love.
We're working on the week. We're going to turn me loose. Right?
Yeah, turn me loose. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It still gets everybody rocking. Anyway, I go to Kenora for a weekend. I didn't have the Kenora dinner jacket on. I went to Kenora, and I love Kenora, the Lake of the Woods area. Love everything. I go with my brother, my wife, and my sister-in-law. We go to watch Harlequin, Loverboy, Street Heart, Trooper all together.
Give me a prism. God. Come on, throw a prism in there.
Now, Mike Reno has the undershirt kind of thingy on, and Mike Reno's up a few Big Macs from the time when he was in, if you
leather pants weren't fitting as well.
If you would, I think I might have dated him. He was a handsome dude. So the guy gets on stage. That's no word of a lie, and he pulls his thing. And again, he's up a lot of lbs, man. He's not a fat bastard or anything, but he's up there. And he pulls this thing aside, and he starts licking his nipple. On stage. Now, I think he was doing it as a joke. I'm like, are you serious? But I tell you, I was still dancing, I was still singing, and I love him. But you know what? That's a good suggestion for next year. I think they've had him. They've had at the Canadian Open. Diener, didn't you go to Thistle's house?
Yeah. Yeah.
When they had 5440.
Yeah, 5440. Sam Roberts. Yeah.
Daly came up on. He had bare feet, and he did All my exes wear Timexes.
Thought it was Rolexes. He was singing
Rolexes
Bare Feet.
Those are
I've
mine.
never seen that. Was at Kev's place at Angus Glen, and we were sitting there. And do you remember that? It was like right when I moved here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hang out with these guys. John Daly comes from with his guitar, and he sits in front of this fireplace, and he literally drank 15 Mike's Hard Lemonades right in front of us. I've never seen that before in my life.
I love John Daly, but so
I do too.
They had, I think, 1 year or two. I'm pretty sure they had Kevin Costner in his band.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I forgot he was in a band.
Cochran, I think, has played. They've done it big before with concerts, but I think it's so good. I got and yeah, I am close with all of them, the organizers, and the Golf Canada Foundation that has raised millions and millions of dollars. Guys, we're not talking today about all the great Canadian men and women on the PGA and LPGA tours without Golf Canada and the Golf Canada Foundation. There are some unbelievable souls with deep pockets who have helped fund these young players like Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith and Mac Hughes and Nick Taylor. And you go on and go down the list. Mike Weir never had that. And he's a big part of the foundation now to help them get money to train, money to develop, to travel. It gets them to the point. Why do we have 20 in the field? The goal, by the way, for the Golf Canada Foundation is to get 30 Canadian men and women on the tours by 2032. That's Kevin Blue's big goal. He's a marketing.
I can't believe there's 20 already. That's
there's
huge.
not 20 on the tour. There's not 20 on the tour.
No. Oh, okay.
In the field, some of them are amateurs, some of them are young guns, some of them got exemptions.
Yeah.
Mike's
Corn Ferry guys, just a bunch of guys from all over the Canadian. If you're Canadian, you got to qualify. There's a list of things you got to do to qualify, but you get like special exemption or special consideration to play in this. Yeah,
I love this event. I love it. So please, again, if you can get out and try to get out and watch on TV, I mean, we should be proud of our Canadians. I just feel so bad this week. I feel like,
always in the shadow of the British Open.
From behind by Evander Kane.
Hey, real quick before we let you go, listen. Rod Black joins us, North Star Bets ambassador at Rod Black TV. Is we're going to talk. We're just talking about the RBC Canadian Open up against it. Unfortunately, it's always been the case because of the British Open. Traditionally the week before, and the schedule always gets messed up.
Play back to back, right?
Yeah. So and I've had the privilege of actually broadcasting from a couple of RBC Canadian Opens, and they do such a wonderful job. And you're right, the volunteers, the organizers, the people down there, they deserve a ton of credit. I want to move from golf though over to the Blue Jays. They're on a bit of a heater. They crushed Kansas City last night. I don't even want to talk about Vlad. I don't want to talk about Bo. I want to talk about 5-8.
They had today.
Yeah. No. Did they bash?
Just get the score. Tapia
What's the score?
hit one into the fountain. Zach Collins hit one. I think they were trailing 5-3, but hang on. Up to date. Loading.
Talk to me.
Loading. Blue Jays down 7-3 in the seventh.
Yeah.
Okay, that sucks.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's okay. It's only one game.
Yeah, it's one game, and they're on a heater, and they've looked really good.
Back-to-back shutouts.
Back to back 8-0, 7-0. Can we talk about Alejandro Kirk for just a second? Yeah. Can we talk about
the Teletubby?
I love that guy.
Love him.
Every time I see him run, I laugh out loud, but he's so fast.
No, he's not. He's not fast. He's not athletic. No, he's 5'8", so he's the Blue Jays catcher, and he came up last year in a weird season, and he came straight from A-ball, and everybody's like, this guy is like 5'7" at best, not 5'8", and they're like, he's 210. He's 240 if he's a fucking pound. He was 4 for 5.
He's 4'11" too.
He probably has a sticker that says you can use certain parking spots. We can't. That's how small he is. So like he was 4 for 5 last night. Only because he has to, by the way.
I love him.
I do too. 4 for 5 last night. 16 for his last 36. In the last month, he's been the best player in baseball. He's got the best OPS in baseball. He's top 10 in batting average, on base, slugging. I mean, the dude has turned into whatever Mark Shapiro saw him be. Is it weird watching this? Because it's weird for me because he does not look like a baseball player.
Yeah, it was weird when I first saw him come up, and I went, "Who is this dude?" Was he at the concession stand? They just brought him in, and then I did a little research, and he's been around. You know what he can do, guys?
What's that?
He can rake. He has got such quick hands. He might be one of the best contact hitters in the game. His hands are incredible. You can't sneak anything by him. Will they one of the things that happens in baseball is that they get tape on you and they try to find weak spots, whether it's some sort of slider in, backdoor or back foot curveball, whatever it be, high heater. They haven't found that yet. And because of where he hits in the lineup, I do think that he might get a few more pitches to hit. But Danny Jansen's out now, so you're going to see more Alejandro Kirk. I love
Jansen
him.
What happened to Jansen the other night? He got hit.
Left. He's going to be out for a bit, I heard. Here we go. I love this. I love this guy. You know what I love about this Blue Jay team? And I know people are I know they're on a heater, but they were ice cold for a bit there, and everybody's saying, "Oh, they need." Remember, the baseball playoffs are expanded.
This guy.
He's the Blue Jay panda. He's the remember Pablo Sandoval? I love it.
Your teams know.
Dude, look at him. Look at him. Like he's not a baseball player. That's like Cecil Fielder in a trash compactor. Like it's the weirdest shit I've ever seen. All he does, Rod, is hit and hit and hit, and everyone fucking loves him.
He sits up there forever.
Anybody who's in Major League Baseball, anybody who's a professional baseball player is good at baseball. They're really good at baseball. And Alejandro Kirk just happens to have this. That's how we got there. No, forget about physique and all that. By the way, we've had players in the game. I go back to when I was, back when I first started watching the game, you didn't even have a player like him, though, around. Look at Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Look at Babe. How did Babe Ruth, who had probably the fastest swing speed in the history of baseball, how did he hit all? Just watch him. He was a pitcher too. I mean, he had a lot of girth.
Big dude.
Hey, big. No, the baseball doesn't look back at you and say, "Hey, you're chubby." He's got swing speed. He's got great eye.
Yeah.
But I love this Blue Jay team. And so, I think they're 7 out, or we're at the beginning of the day, might be a little bit at the end of the day. I wouldn't worry too much. They're in a soft part of the schedule where they can really pick up some games here. And they're going to be a playoff team. I think there's no doubt. Even with, who've gone cold and hot, they've got best young lineup. If they can get their pitching, keep it together. And guys, you said it. They got Alejandro Kirk. They got Alejandro Kirk.
They do. They really do. Yeah. He's been incredible to watch. I mean, and when you watch him, and we just played a clip of it, you can see it. His bat stays in the zone for, look at that. Just the last second. His bat is in the zone for so much longer. It's over the plate.
It reminds me of Altuve a little bit. Like, watch that.
Right?
I don't think you roll that back again, but remember, like, Jose Altuve, big safety said, look how small Jose Altuve is.
The 2-0.
And I know people say, the cheating thing. And you still got to hit the ball. You still have to hit the ball, but he's
fly ball left.
Captain Kirk, beat me around.
How fun is he to watch, right? And when you're getting that kind of production, I know you're a baseball guy, getting that kind of production from your 5'6" guy, like I think Espinal was 3 for 5 last night as well too. Like
he's become an everyday player.
Yeah, he is. Rod, thank you for doing this. You got to go. Really appreciate seeing you as always, and congratulations on everything you're doing, including your ambassadorship with our friends over at North Star Bet. Congratulations.
Thank you, my man. Thank you. I'm enjoying that. I think I'm repping today.
You are repping.
I didn't do that on purpose, but there you go.
There you go. Nice work.
There you go.
You get it in there. I'll talk to you soon.
The over-under was on 15 minutes, so I think I went over on whether I should put that on there.
Brother, appreciate you.
I got to tell you, I'm really enjoying doing the Shooting Stars games. I don't know if you know much about the CEBL.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of games, and Jermaine Cole's playing. And I got to tell you, I mean, I love doing the NBA, obviously, but this is so much fun doing these games. And they are packing the Pan Am Center in Toronto. People are vibing. It's you go to a party and a basketball game breaks out, and it's fun. Jalen Harris is playing. If you get a chance to go down, come and see us. And
they're even running highlights of those games.
Oh, yeah. Sports packages. And J. Cole's like one of the biggest artists in the world, and he's playing for Scarborough in the CEBL. Like, it's actually really good basketball.
He could actually, J. Cole has got more money. He would own the CFL, the CEBL, the Canadian Soccer League, and maybe MLS altogether. I love this guy. Like, he's so humble. You wouldn't even know. Players are coming into practice, and they go, geez, that looks like J. Cole. That's not J. That's J. Cole, and they're having a blast. He's not like he's not a star by any stretch. He's a music star, but I tell you this takes balls to do what he's doing. He just dream of playing pro ball. He fits in. He hit 2 3-pointers. The place went nuts last night, and he's not out of place. He's not out of place, and I think that's all that he wanted. That's all that he wanted.
Yeah, it's an incredible
Get a
story, and
chance.
I read it the other day that he was playing for Scarborough, and I'm like, J. Cole, like the artist, the guy.
Under,
Like,
come, I'll get you tickets. June 25th, 7th, and also let's talk about the Joe Carter Classic.
when is that? That's coming up, isn't it?
29. Yep.
June 29th. Are we still broadcasting from there?
Yeah. Well,
All right.
I got the rights for you.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. You're the tournament organizer. You're on the committee. So yeah, the Joe Carter.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Are we? So we're still on track for the Joe Carter tournament, June 29th. Is it the Eagles Nest still? Is that where it is?
Glen Abbey.
Oh, it's at the Abbey. Oh my God, I am so in. I am so in.
So we'll figure it out.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it. Great to see you. Thanks so much. And I'll send you a text, and we'll talk a little bit about
Enjoy
the ocean.
Enjoy the Open. Enjoy the Live this week.
Oh, don't worry, I will. We'll talk to you soon, Roddy.
Ciao, guys.
Take care. Rod Black,
my
ladies
friend.
and gentlemen. Rod Black TV, one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. I fucking love that guy.
Good guy. Yeah.
Love that guy. I love talking to him. I love being around him is like medicine.
He's got good energy. Just
It's awesome. He's so positive. He's so fun. He's so hopeful. He's like a little ball of joy that just kind of walks around and breathes life in every room that he's in.
Too from that. Wow, we don't need to get into it. Yeah.
What? Losing his
The old
gig?
TSN thing.
Like getting fired for no reason? That part?
Forced retirement.
Yeah, forced.
Look, I know you're
Those are
only
great.
50, but we're done with you.
Yeah, no, he's a beauty. Anyway, thanks for doing this. And I got a split, so we're going to cut it short today, but appreciate it. And we're not going to get to the Burger King story. We'll save that for tomorrow. We're also going to talk about the Tampa Rays Pride Month. So I want to talk to Ann about equality, inclusiveness, and how some people are still not that into it for some reason. I can't figure it out.
It is a little bit weird. Let people be themselves and worry more about yourself and stop judging other people.
That's right. And you're welcome, everybody, for getting upset by the All Sports All Day podcast. It's the All Sports All Day
Jen
podcast.
was
right here.
sports.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Jen's like sporty sports.
Half the time, they don't even pay any attention to us. They're just chatting with each other in the chats.
Have you been through our chat? It's literally
It's
people
insane.
giving like taco recipes.
I can't even keep
talking about the joint that they just smoked, talking about being on heaters. And then this was like, hey, I'll meet you in Kenora. Melissa's like, okay, I'm there now. Great. That took an unexpected. Like people in the comments section of this podcast make vacation arrangements together. It's the most fucked thing I've ever seen, and I love it for some reason.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm going to let you go too tomorrow. Now, if you do go, I can jump on from the golf course and let you know what pants I'm wearing. Okay.
We've got an interesting show tomorrow. James is going to come and join me for a show.
Okay.
And you may remember when we had David Wallace on this very program.
Yeah.
The Ford whistleblower guy, the fixer guy. He's coming back because I have more questions for him. Because since we've had him on the show, this thing has turned into this slow burn, which is becoming a massive, massive story or distraction, depending on who and what you believe. So David Wallace is going to join us on the show again tomorrow.
I'm actually
James.
glad because that show last week stressed the fuck out of me. So I'll be on the golf course getting drunk.
Good for you. All right. You enjoy your golf. We'll see you on Friday. That is Lachlan Cross, 957 Cruise FM in Edmonton, at Lachlan Cross on Twitter. Give him a follow. And thank you, everybody. And thanks to everybody in the comment section. Thanks to Rod Black for joining us. Thanks to Matt Lemers for joining us as well from MJbiz Daily. It was a fun little note-taking podcast. I appreciated it. And go to the RBC Canadian Open this weekend at St. George's. Ian Leggett, former PGA Tour champion, is the head pro at St. George's. So, and he is the most detailed guy I've ever met in my life, and a wonderful dude. So if you're going, ask for Lego. Tell him Dean says hi. But go and support it. And hopefully one of the Canadian guys in the field will win this week. Big Corey Connors fan, Mac Hughes guy, Mackenzie Hughes. He's a great player. Taylor Pendrith can hit the shit out of the golf ball. And it's a great Canadian event. So go if you can, if you're in the area. If not, don't worry about it. But thank you. Really appreciate it. Say hi to our sponsors at Easy Auto Financial for making this possible. Easy Auto Financial, helping you get financing when nobody else can. If you've got bad credit, good credit, no credit, doesn't matter. These guys are absolute surgeons when it comes to getting you financing that some people might not be able to get you, and they don't want you to pay for a thing either. EasyAutoFinancial.ca. Check them out today. Also, our friends at Domination. They help you produce content, promos, streaming, gaming, podcasting, whatever you do. You feed your file when you're done into their AI, and it spits out 72 promos in like 5 minutes. So you don't have to waste time piecing that stuff together for promos, etc. You'll love them. Try them for free, dmntn.com. Try them today. And, Ed at Ed's Fine Imports. Hey, Ed. We have underwear for you. Ed's Gitch, Gitch, luxury branded boxer briefs, pouch in the front. You can't miss when you buy these. They are the best underwear you'll ever buy. They got a bunch of different colors. Ed's Fine Imports is a clothing store for men and boys. You can order online, massive online store, and you can order his Gitch right now. 15% off when you give him your email address. He doesn't spam either. And free underwear when you use promo code Gitch and then the number 3. That is your promo code at edsfineimports.com. Have a great day, everybody. I know I will. Because I get to decide my attitude today. Strangely enough, you do too. A lot of people don't think you do, but you do. You get to decide the kind of person you're going to be and the smile you put on your face. If indeed you think you can do that, do it today. Everybody goes through shitty stuff. Dude, we're watching it. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Decide to have a good day. Choose your attitude today. You can do that. Anybody can. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.